This is an ABC podcast.
Morena, no ia e Māori, and good morning. This is Pacific Beat on ABC Radio Australia. We are always proud to say that Pacific Beat comes to you from the lands of the Boonwurrung and Wurundjeri peoples of the Kulin Nation. Hopefully you had a great weekend. Thank you for joining us here on a bright and early Monday morning. Well, for more than a decade, the Highlands Human Rights Defenders Network in Papua New Guinea have been helping the most vulnerable. And one less casino in Vanuatu is a good thing, right? And what's the Fala methodology, and how can this bridge the gap between Western and Pacific approaches to better health outcomes? More on these stories shortly. We are across Facebook and Instagram at ABC Pacific, but I'm Agnes Tupou and this is Pacific Beat, yours in the Pacific. Well, the next story. Pacifica peoples are 7 times more likely than populations with non-Pacifica backgrounds to be hospitalised for diabetes-related complications. But despite overrepresentation, there is now new research through the Fala methodology, a decolonizing approach that would help bridge the gap between Western and Pacifica methodologies, hopefully in efforts to improve quality of life. So to gain a better understanding on this research, we are joined by the researcher, Dr. Agnes Fainga'a-Manu, a community research fellow at Griffith University. With that, I say, malo te mau bongbongini.
Malo lele, and thank you so much for having me, Aggie.
No worries. Really appreciate your time this morning, Doctor. I mean, look, who specifically, and I know it's a Pacifica research, but who specifically did you actually target within the community to be able to do this research?
So my research involved 3 generations, so elders, parents and young people, even though my beginning interest was with young people, but I realized using a cultural framework, you can't just engage our young people without considering the entire village. So I included the elders, parents and young people. And with the elders, it was very much I kind of interviewed Tongans, Fijians, Samoans, Cook Islanders, just to understand from the elders' perspective around what does health look like for them. And then more specifically, it was 5 families from Logan, from one Pacifica church that kind of gave me some insight in terms of their local context. So, and they were predominantly Samoan. Given in Logan, Samoan is the second most highest spoken language after English. And that's in a realm of 234 different cultural groups. So it was evident if I'm going to work in the Logan space, working alongside the Samoan community is going to be a key process. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, I said it in the beginning. Data shows, that the rate of preventable diseases like obesity and diabetes affects our Pacifica communities, and it actually continues to rise. And I know in your research you said with diagnoses even in younger patients becoming more prevalent. So did your research give a better understanding of why this is?
Absolutely. I think the greatest insight of the research was really trying to understand in the diaspora that health for Pacific people is really, for starters, elders rejected the term, the Western term health, which I didn't realize there was an issue with, and they were kind of like, oh, that's a bailangi, that's a Western term that's irrelevant to us, it's divorced from us. And the reason being is because it wasn't encompassing of spirituality. So when I asked the elders, what is a more appropriate term, they would give me cultural terms, so ifua malo loina, mo uilele, which pretty much translates to being well holistically, spiritually, physically, mentally, socially. It was such a broader reach. And I think the exciting thing is that I get to work in Australia's first Pacifica holistic health hub now in my current role as a researcher. And what that does is that it has a clinic inside a Pacifica church. So you're marrying the spiritual, the secular, clinical, cultural, all in one village called Village Connect. And that's a wonderful, exciting space to stand in, especially, drawing from my research work.
And before we get to that, having to try and sort of navigate Western and Pacifica approaches, you have this thing called the Fala methodology. If you don't mind maybe just breaking it down a little bit as to how that even equates to better health outcomes.
Yeah, I think to be able to, the Fala methodology, I want to acknowledge Her Royal Highness Princess Angelica Lato Fuibeka. I was an MC many moons ago at a fashion parade that she was conducting in Canberra. and using the tapa, the fala, and at that event, she actually was she was talking through several stages of how to make the fala. And unbeknown to me, that many years later, I would draw on that knowledge because I needed it to be able to resolve tensions between island-born elders, New Zealand-born parents, and Australian-born young people. So thanks to the fala and following each of those 10 stages of the fala making, I was able to resolve the generational tensions around what it means to be healthy or well from the Pacific context.
Well, if you could explain, what were some of those tensions then?
Well, what is health for the Pacific? Like I said, the elders were kind of very much anti the term health and everything, and that's why I guess their perspective of they have their own Indigenous ways of healing. So the elders would often talk about prayer, fasting, gathering. So at that time, it's isolation because of COVID. They're like, no, we gather in moments like this. We gather. So you can see some of the complexities in that. With the parents, they followed a little bit more the Pacific and the West, but the young people from Australia, they were perhaps more influenced by that Western way of. But having said that, they were still heavily influenced by elders and parents around how to manage health or how to engage in health services. So I guess, that's kind of the differences between generations and the fact that we kind of do need to tailor generationally as well as culturally.
Thank you for that. If you've just joined us, we're speaking to Dr. Inez Fainga'a-Manu on her research around the Fala methodology. So if we continue to use the Fala methodology, how do we better then navigate between Western and Pasifika ways of doing things, especially, of course, like you said, regarding the health disparities that we're often faced with?
Yeah, I think I'll draw from perhaps the first stage of the Fala methodology is ta oi lau I kia, which means selecting the right year leaves. Not every leaf or not every tree creates a fala. And I think at times, often from our local context, usually there's a general wash of, let's just get any island person to talk through this particular. It's like just get the token native, which is it's quite annoying. But I guess with the Fala methodology, it's not about just finding any tree. Not every tree will make a fala. There are particular trees, and I think for me that's one of the greatest lessons I learned, to find the right people. And who are the right people? Well, it's those within the context of the community, not just take the research and then just do a general wash across communities. It's and that's one thing that this Fala methodology advocates for is go into the local context. And understand the local context and who's who and who are the right people that community want to be able to give voice to their context. And that was a major learning for me, given that I was originally I was running the statewide project for Pacific Communities, multicultural coordinator, and we kind of were just going to all these different schools, and it was that's a statewide context, Whereas this is still really advocating, get to know the local space and get to know who are the chiefs and the ones that the community want to identify that will speak with them and for them because of their service, because of their integrity and reputation within that local context, rather than you're from Tonga, great, we'll get you. It's like, do they even connect with engage with the community? Is their relationship? Have they served that community? So those kind of things, which makes it it takes time to do those things, to know who are the reputable ones. But once you get the right people, then you get the fala made. It speaks for the people because it is reflective and representative of.
Absolutely, and obviously when you see the fala in its fullness, when it's all made and it's beautiful, I'm wondering though how much of a personal journey this has been for you though in regards to being able to do this research, because again, yes, you're wanting to find better health outcomes, but what's it been like personally on this journey?
I love that you've asked that question. It's I think the highest form of ethics is when you're from the community, you have another standard of responsibility, because you're giving voice to your own people and you're always checking in. Is this right? Am I saying the right thing? Because the fala speaks for even though it encompasses so many leaves, so many generations, you only create one fala with a beautiful design. And so it's really that's why I had to create. I had to turn to the fala because I'm like, how do I take the voices of elders, parents, and young people and just create one design, so a harmonious representation? And so, my elders keep me very, very accountable, and so do the young people. They're like, so I think there's a higher standard, I would say, especially because I was the daughter of the community and the daughter of the community first. And so they keep me very accountable to speak right and well in terms of what represents them.
And I know we've only got about just a minute to go before we end up. Doctor, again, what do you want us to take away from if we were to come across and share this type of methodology?
First and foremost, the importance of Indigenous researchers being at the forefront of the research work, and then also taking the time and making the time to get to know the community. Don't just go in an extractive manner to take from our people, and that the solutions lie within our people already. That's what I'm excited about with Village Connect, is that out of the deaths of their babies in the community, the faith leaders rose up and said, when they were losing their babies because of gestational diabetes, which they had no idea about at that time. But out of those deaths in our local context, the faith leaders themselves said, we're going to change our church space into a place where our families and our mothers can get early engagement with clinical services within the church.
I love your work, Dr. Inez. Really appreciate your time this morning and allowing us to get a bit of an insight into this Fala methodology.
Thank you so much, Aggie. Appreciate your time. All the best with everything.
No worries. Mahalo apito. That is Dr. Inez Fainga'a-Manu, a community research fellow there at Griffith University. Well, guys, that literally brings us to the end of Pacific Beat. I'll be back at the same time at 6 a.m. PNG time, but you can hear us this afternoon at 5 p.m. PNG time. Stay tuned to ABC Radio Australia, though. Yes, it is news next, and then coming up after that, it is Nisha Daily. Until next time, o toa awhātu. I'm Agnes Tupou, and you've been tuning into Pacific Beat.